this one is, I guess we'll call it a Spey-inspired Stonefly. We're going to tie it on a size 4 Gamakatsu T10 3/8. It's their traditional up-eye tapered loop kind of thing.
Is that the B10?
No, this is one of the
G6.
T10. It's a
T10, yeah.
T10 3/8. It's the salmon. Yeah, salmon tapered loop up eye. It's a 1X fine. The first thing I do is just tie in tails, which are on this pattern, biot tail. And I don't know if you guys work with goose biots very often. I love them. They're one of my very favorite things to tie with. They make buggy stuff so easy. When I work with biots, especially for like a tail where I want them to be kind of splayed a little bit, I'll put a tiny little dab of dubbing on the hook just to spread them out and give it something to sit against. The dubbing I'm using on this one is this Phoenix dubbing in golden stone. I got that from Fish Tech. I think it's available at most all the fly shops. You just want a teeny tiny bit, again, kind of like we talked about on that last pattern. And if you don't use dubbing wax in your tying, you really should. It'll make it way easier. If you ever watch Davey McPhail, he's got wax on every single step of everything he does, and it makes your thread just grip all your materials so much easier.
Well, you know what I found in ammo? If you just run it across the dubbing wax.
Yeah, I just put it right there and just rub it on there, and it's all you need. Just enough to give it some stick. It's a kind of...
Well, it sure makes the enamel thread not slip.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to dress your hook and stuff too with that little bit of wax. On the biots, I like to tie them in facing outward, so there's like a natural curve to the biot. I like to tie it with that facing away from the hook shank, and I'll just put one side on, pinch wrap that in place, turn it around to the back side, measure it for distance or length, and then you can kind of see that the length works out pretty good if you do it that way. And then rather than even cut these guys off, I just bind this all down to the hook shank because it's going to get built up with a pretty good sized dubbing loop anyway. So biot tails are in. Now we need a rib, and on this I'm just going to use a little oval tinsel. I'll tie that in here.
I have not been able to find a little tinsel in the shop.
In any of the shops?
Really?
Comes on a spool.
I got the wooden spool version. It makes me feel nostalgic.
Oh, so it doesn't come on a little spool set.
Yeah, and you can also get, just so you know, if you don't like looking for little spools of tinsel, lots of the embroidery floss options you have at the Walmart or Wally World are kind of tinsel-y type things. And if you're not using sulky tinsel, you should also be using that. That stuff's like strong as bullets. It's made to be sewing thread, and it's comes in 1,000 different colors. Yeah, and it's so tough. So another.
It's far better than
Yeah,
pearl.
yeah, way better, way better. And it comes in cooler colors.
Yeah, they can battery operated.
I don't know about that. Okay, so with that rib tied in, now I like to have these nymphs weighted, and since we're not running a bead on this one, I'm just going to use lead wire. Hope that everybody's okay with it being real lead. It's just how I end up doing things usually. It's like I don't like to tie the wire on, or the lead wire, in the beginning, because then I have to like build a body over it, and if as this goes, I can just bury this in my process easier.
That makes sense.
Size wire.
020. Anytime I use lead wire on my flies, I like to glue it down. So I just
Do you
use.
use lead still?
Yeah, I'm not a true hippie by any sense of the meaning.
Well, the problem is that it's, you know, the tin's like half the weight.
Yeah. And I've tried a few of the other. They have like the I think they have tungsten, like tungsten wire now, like, and it's wicked expensive, and I don't know. I've had this kicking around in my stuff for a long time. It doesn't ever run out, it seems like. Mostly because I've switched to almost 100% just tungsten beads, but
Mickey was telling us last week that tungsten beads aren't really tungsten, they're an alloy.
they're a mix. Yeah, they're a mix of tungsten. There's another there's a company that's just recently come out called Techstream, and their big marketing thing is that they're 98% pure tungsten. I don't think that means anything, man. I mean, you might get a couple of micrograms more weight per bead or something like that, but it's not really worth the trouble.
Sounds better than steel beads.
Yeah, for sure.
And they can charge more
For sure. Okay, so now I'm going to do a dubbing loop on this body since we decided to not kill ourselves with more weaving all the rest of the time.
Well, it took 2 hours.
Yeah, we killed a couple hours there.
It's a good way to kill a few hours. I mean, I do fly tying just as much for the fun of it as I do for the function of it, so. It's my sanity. I came out of a divorce several years ago and was crazy, so I learned how to tie to keep myself from wanting to kill people. It's way better.
Yeah, I miss my ex-wife, but my aim's getting a lot better.
I didn't even try to shoot, man. I was running the other way. I couldn't shoot.
You didn't leave town.
I did. I moved to Clearfield.
It might not have been far enough.
It might not have been.
You gotta laugh, right?
You gotta laugh so you don't cry sometimes, man.
You using hackle pliers?
No, have you ever used this dubbing loop tool? This dubbing tool from Loon?
Yeah.
This is.
Oh, not that one. I've got
This one's got the shepherd's hook on it, and it comes with the little gator grip too. So if you ever do those complex twist buggers where you mix like schlappen and stuff together and polar chenille, you can clip any kind of bundle of things together and do a dubbing loop with it. It's pretty rad.
Because you know what I have to do?
Okay, so I'm gonna just get this guy out of the way here. With a little
I'm
half
blocking
edge.
the view. No, I'm not. Just wanted to see what that tool looks like. Guess I'm going to Fish Tech today.
Fish Tech, or I think you can get it on Fly Fish Foods website too, if you're into it.
Well, this is what I use.
Another $50 advanced class.
Actually, the best one is this is the one that Buddy Knight used the other night.
You got that wooden one there also, the blue bead on it. And this other
Well,
one.
this is the one I normally use. So you look at it.
Yeah, I see. You got this other one too.
Yeah. I got all kinds. Can't have enough tools, right?
All right.
Once you got that dubbing loop wound up,
About 3/4.
trap your thread and tie it all.
That's yours, that's pretty cool too.
Once that's there, and then I like to really kind of brush this out as much as I can when it's in this stage to kind of trim that all back out.
And
Once it's all ratted up like this, because I did want to keep that taper, then I just take my scissors and kind of clean that up.
Oh my God. Then you don't lose it.
No.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They got some great stuff.
Yeah.
What is this one called?
It's a Stonefly too, but it's kind of like a Spey type of
It is.
inspired kind of thing. Yeah, I use some soft hackle and some old school materials like oval tinsel. And then whenever you do a dubbing loop or any kind of dubbing body, you should always wrap your rib counter to that just so that it doesn't fall down between the wraps of thread from the other step.
You know, I don't remember where, I read somewhere in the last couple of months, Charlie Craven says don't do that.
Really, I've literally,
I don't want to find it again.
I would love to see it, because I literally have done the test where I will wrap like a palmered body and then re-wrap it the other way, and you can lose the rib. Like, it'll slide down in between the grooves of that wrap, you know, because it's going the same direction. So it probably is less of an issue if you have a thicker ribbing material. But if you're doing smaller flies with like light wire ribs and things like that, it'll definitely slide down in between the creases.
I'm gonna find, I think it's in his basic flight time book, I don't know. So I looked at that and I went, really?
Okay, so now that we've got this tied in and we've got that body, we want to be about 2/3 of the way up the hook shank here, so we have that much space between the eye. And now I want to tie in the thin skin piece that I'll use for the wing case on this bug, right here at the back of the thorax section. And I just tie that in and bind it all down tight, not going to worry.
That's just a strip.
That's just a strip, yeah, just a straight strip. Okay, and then now we need to tie in our hackle feathers. On this, I've got a bunch of different stuff here, but this is some barred dark ginger, really pretty stuff. I used the one that I showed you, I used this saddle hackle, but it's got a little bit longer fibers, and I wanted to try and
But they're soft.
trim it down, yeah.
Steal it.
And so I like to tie this in skinny end first, so we get that taper. And just tie it onto the side of the hook facing me. And then double that back, pin it down, trim off that waist.
So you tied the tip.
I tied the tip in, yeah. So now, when I do this and I just, it's kind of gross. Dave uses the little cool, moist sponge because he's cooler than me, but I just preen those back, each wrap, and try to keep it almost in the same place because you just want to build up that big clump of fibers, and then you'll preen it all down and wrap the thin skin over the top of it.
So it's sort of messy, right?
It's a little bit messy to start with, yeah. Any of those fibers that are trapped.
So that's the 1/3?
That's at basically at 2/3 is where,
Oh,
yeah. Okay, and then on that, you can kind of just take those hackles, preen them all down one way. And once they are, then you can pull that first layer of thin skin over the top. Actually, I'm going to do the dubbing, build that up a little bit. I like the dubbing under the thin skin because it kind of helps give it something to support it. The thin skin itself doesn't like to be stretched, like I was saying earlier, so if you keep something underneath it to kind of give it that profile that you like. A couple of wraps and then double that thin skin back, and then you're ready to do another section of hackle.
Are you introducing another color, or is that the same?
Just the same one. They'll probably each vary slightly just based on the feather itself, but I think I actually liked the feathers I used on the first draft better. I saw the pretty feathers and wanted those this time though.
Those are pretty stiff.
Yeah, they are. The feathers that I used on that first version of this are about 60 years old. They were very brittle. They were kind of hard to tie with. Another little bit of dubbing to help tame those. They're a little frizzier than that last feather it was.
So Roscoe, are you on the Moonlight or Loon too?
The loon team? No, I'm on the moonlit team only because I initially wanted good price on hooks. But
Nothing wrong with that.
no, I realized I was kind of stuck in this like devastating hobby that was never going to leave me, and so I needed to try and find a way to make it more less expensive anyway, but it didn't work. Now I get hooks at a better price, and I still spend way too much money on fly tying stuff. So
Don't we all?
we all kind of are in that club, aren't we? Not so much, huh? Oh,
Well, that never happens to me.
seriously.
Well, let's see, 4 years ago, in June,
That was the first time it happened?
no, I had all my Stillwater stuff in the back of the truck locked up. Next to my garage, underneath our bedroom window with the dog. Somebody came in the middle of the night and stole it. And it was like 4 rods, 5 or 6 reels, a bunch of spools, 20 boxes of flies. It was about $8,000. And if you think your insurance company's gonna cover it,
No, they don't believe you. You're telling me that this box of feathers and fur?
they gave me, I got some money, but what they do is they discounted everything, because I had, it was 20 years old, flies. I mean,
So you need a better insurance policy?
it was bad.
I haven't had anything like that happen.
Should've got an adjuster that was a fly tire.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, auto owners, you don't fix your adjuster.
I just took pictures of all my white boxes.
Well, that's good. Take pictures of everything.
Cemetery.
If you actually had the pictures of all that stuff, do you think you could get them to cover you on that?
I submitted a whole bunch of pictures, and
It's because it's,
I couldn't come up with everything that's in the back of the truck.
well, you couldn't come up with,
Which one?
some of it doesn't have like an actual tangible value.
No. Well, what they ended up doing is they sent it to some national company that does that. And then they, I don't know how they figured it out, but it was only like, I think I got $3,000.
For $8,000. That happens in my line of work when people get all their tools stolen out of their truck.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really rotten thing to have
That's
happen.
a bad thing, too.
Somebody's doing
I
that.
know when tools stolen out of the house.
I had that.
All locked up.
I've only had that happen one time, and I know exactly who stole all my junk. And I confronted them, they denied it, and that was the end of the whole thing. It was like, oh man, I can't do anything about this at all.
Like
Nope.
10 grand worth.
Nobody cares. Nobody's gonna do anything.
What a contract out.
Well, there is that. But I feel like that's one of those things that isn't like as much about creating a brotherly love kind of deal. I want to hurt people.
Well,
And I want to be the one doing it, not sending somebody else to do it, man.
so you got 3 sections?
3 little wing case sections there. And then you just lacquer a head or finish a head on it. The other one I tied looks a little better, I'll be honest, but
Is that an 8?
this is a 4. It's a size 4, yeah, size 4. I'm going to take this off and put some black thread on there for the head. Yeah, yeah. Or even strip it. What did you say?
What type of hook is this again, please?
This is the Gamakatsu T10 3H. It's a salmon hook, salmon or steelhead hook, I guess. Huh? I used the tan, but I'm switching to black so that I have a black head on it. Just to finish the head.
I just use a magic marker.
I forgot my markers. I do a lot of the marker thing too. It works really well.
Works great, and then you just put that hard head on, and away you go. You got a two-tone.
Yeah, the little lighter color in between, I kind of like that, how that turned out. Stonefly. Simple, messy, buggy.